is your relationship with time? Are you wired and tired, stressed and overwhelmed, busy and going nowhere? Or just want to scale your business? Welcome to Take Back Time with your host, Penny Zenker. Penny focuses on books, strategies, tools, and tips to help you work smarter and approach your time more strategically. As a result, you can have more energy, focus, and get more done in less time. Be more efficient and effective. Get ready to take back time.
Hello, and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker, and I'm your host. And on this show, we help you to take back time. Okay, maybe not literally, but we help you to be smarter in the way that you approach things. And today's guest, Kris Ward, she is going to help you get a clue on that because she is the founder of Win the Hour, Win the Day. And it's both a platform and an Amazon best-selling book that helps entrepreneurs to systematically grow their businesses and enjoy their personal life as well, which is pretty important since most entrepreneurs don't have a personal life. Her book has been featured on the award-winning Read to Lead podcast, offers a 4-week productivity plan to go from overwhelmed to highly efficient so that you can reclaim your life. So, Kris, without further ado, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. I am very excited to be here.
Well, it's exciting to have you because I like that whole, it's so simple what you say is win the hour, win the day. So, but before we go into sort of the meat of how to, what's your backstory as to how you became an expert in this space?
Oh, okay. Thanks. No problem. Yeah, let me dive into that. So I have a marketing agency and I was in business for about 4 years and I was working like crazy hours. And one day I nearly electrocuted myself because I was in such a rush. And I talk about this in the book and I call myself now a recovering rushaholic. But one day I nearly electrocuted myself because I was rushing around and I thought, you know what? I just can't keep this up. This is crazy. I had subscribed to the old way of doing things where your personal life pays the price. You're working harder and harder. You're buying new technology and you're burning out and you're repeating the cycle. And I just realized it was not working. So I started to feverishly examine productivity and I really didn't have time for all those heavy time management systems.
Right. Who's got the time for that?
I know. And you know, I had a lot of pushback and so do a lot of my clients because I got a lot done in a day, like a lot. So to me, it was like, well, what's this going to offer me? But I still knew that even though I got a lot done, I needed to get more done. So that's when I started to just really examine productivity like feverishly. And I thought, I'm going to make this my superpower. This is what I'm going to do. And I really started to see some very significant changes and really cut, like I was going from 16 hours a day down to like 7. And luckily I did because it was just a couple years later and my husband had been diagnosed with colon cancer and I had been pulled away from the business really for almost 2 years. He did pass away. And when I returned to my business, not only had it survived, but it had thrived. And it was shocking to my
How many
client.
people can say that? I
No,
mean, that they can walk away from their business and it still runs. So that's really, really key.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you were positioned to be able to do that.
Yeah. And really clearly in a situation like that, I obviously had other things on my mind and you don't need to be worried about all that. And nor did John because he was my world's biggest fan and he saw how hard I worked. And so if he thought for a moment that this was pulling me down, like it would have been another worry that he had, right? Yeah. So it really did make such a big difference. And when I returned, my clients were shocked. They were not aware of my absence. They didn't know anything about it. They didn't even know he was ill. When it became public, it was very shocking to people that I knew in the business community and my client. So they started to try to hint and be sensitive and ask me, like, how did I manage it all? And so I really like helping people. And so it really helped me in the grieving process to say, you know what, how can I help more people? Because your business should support your life, not consume it.
Not beat your life.
Yes. Yeah, not eat your life up.
Yeah.
And so I started working with these people and I was able to help them get rid of 80% of their to-do list, 100% of their guilt. They stopped doing things they hated that they didn't have time for. Start getting those dream projects out, those add-on services, having a bigger impact to their audience. And they started taking vacations for the real vacations for
the first time, probably many of them.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people who are listening, you can like raise your hands to yourself How many people could leave their business and it still run? And how many people don't even take vacation because everything is so intertwined without them, right? I guarantee you that 75% of the people are raising their hand right now and say, yeah, unfortunately, that's me.
And a vacation does not mean answering emails from a new location. So, okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, that's not a vacation. Oh, so now I'm in a different location answering your emails at different hours is not a vacation, right? And there was a point even in my own life where anything that wasn't work was an interruption from work, right?
And what a way to live. Like, that's not why we're working. I get it. A lot of people are in business. They're passionate about what they do. So they're working maybe because they love it. However, we're working also so that we can enjoy our own life, right? And life on our own terms is supposed to be what the entrepreneur is.
Yeah, more freedom. You and your family should not have to pay the price because you have ambitions and dreams, right? So I totally bought into that. So I just thought, you know what? I started working with all these people having all this success. And I thought, how can I help more people? And I thought, okay, I will sit down. I will write this book so we can take it out and I can serve more people. And because at the time I started working with these clients in the Win the Hour capacity, but now I still had my agency. So now I have like 8 clients on Tuesday, which is 1/5 of my week because they didn't want to do group sessions because they all knew each other locally and they didn't want each other to know their business. So I said, okay, I will pull back. I'll write this book. I'll take it online and people will have a business that is fun to them and that they can enjoy getting things out and executing projects instead of juggling work. So that's how it came to be.
So, everybody's thinking, I want that, right? I want, what did you say? Reduce your time by 80% and reduce the guilt by 100%.
Yeah.
What are some how-tos when you talk about, well, actually, let me back up for a second because I used to ask this question all the time and I want to get back to it. What's your definition of productivity and why?
Well, my definition of productivity is to have a goal, achieve the goal, and have a clear path. Like, this is what I'm going to do. It's a very simple thing. This is what I want to do, and now I've done it. So it can be something as simple as, you look at, I'm going in to make dinner. 2 hours later, if no dinner's made and you're still hungry, you're not very productive. So I think just to simplify it, this is what we're going to do. What's the plan? When do we expect it done? And is it done? It's simple.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some how-tos. Like, when you talk about win the hour, win the day, what's the main, it says it, right? But I want you to explain from your perspective, why do you say that? Why do you say win the hour, win the day? And what does that mean?
Because if you can win the hour, you can win the day. And what I mean by that is I used to hit the floor Monday morning. For some reason, I thought Monday was going to be a bigger, more dramatic day than every other day. And I would hit the floor Monday morning with my to-do list in hand. And I was going to take on the world. It was going to be this vast day of productivity. And what happens is I was living off a to-do list. And so I wouldn't realize that maybe 2-3 things I would get done by 10 a.m. And I wouldn't understand that the next 2 or 3 things could take 2 days or 2 weeks or new things came up. And I was just constantly going down the rabbit hole and all this stuff. And what I realized is none of these tasks were tied to time. I had no understanding of how much time they took. So everyone thinks time management. I know there's a lot of heavy, complicated systems out there. But for me, it was, what's your GPS for the day? Are you using your calendar? Your calendar is your time bank account. So people will say to me, well, I do all this stuff every day, but I don't count it because I don't need to remember it. I don't need to put it on my calendar. It's not an appointment. I know I have to do it every day, even something like emails. And my argument is, well, you have a car payment that comes out every month and you don't say, well, I'm not going to count that because it comes out every month. It still takes money out of your account, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I say to people is you might be running into the workday thinking you have 8 hours and you might only have 4. So what I want you to do is map out your day hour by hour. It's very simple. I'm not talking about a heavy system. But if you say, I'm going to do this one thing for this hour, there's a whole nother discussion about focus that we can dive into, but
and we will
yield amazing results and you're going to be able to plan out your activities and execute your projects and have other people come into play where you need them because you've got a solid plan.
Yeah, I like that idea of thinking of it as a bank account because I talk a lot about value, right? And focusing on value you're creating and what the value of those tasks are. And that makes you think about it. If you think about it like these 8 hours, or you put that into the number of minutes, however you want to account for it in your bank, it makes you think about the value too.
And you can't improve what you don't measure.
Oh, absolutely. But nobody likes to measure it. Let's face it, is the whole idea, the things that we tell them around time management and how to get structured and organized and plan, to some people, that's like a bad rash. Like, no, don't.
Well, because there's a lot of heavy systems out there, and I get that. Like, I remember I think I was in grade 11. And I remember, I don't know why they have these summer exams like in June. And, clearly I wasn't paying attention. And I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to make this calendar, and it's going to be very sophisticated about how much studying I have to do every day to ace all my exams.
Distractions are the enemy of productivity. Go to distractionquiz.com and find out your distraction profile. Are you a time zombie or a hamster? Take this free distraction quiz today to rate your ability to focus on what keeps you from being a wizard. Go to distractionquiz.com.
Surprise, surprise, after the first week, I did not follow the calendar. So what I did instead of study harder is I revamped the calendar, right? And so
you procrastinated, yeah, and then shoved everything in the last.
Well, nothing ever happened. I just kept color coordinating a calendar. And that's what people see as more work. Whereas what the praise I keep getting for my strategies, not system, but strategies in my book is it's an easy read and stuff you can implement today.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. That's where you're right. Time management, there's some really heavy infrastructures out there that are overwhelming. And this is not that.
Right. Well, good, because I agree with you is that sometimes systems, you can't start into a giant system. You have to start with baby steps. Make one change. And I use also the calendaring type of approach with time blocking and making sure that you're clear what it is that you're planning to do in a day and that it's capacity-wise possible. What I like about the win the hour, tell me more about, because I always tell people that it's setting an intention for what you want to create in that hour to help them to focus, period, but also to be clear about what their output is in that hour. What's your win the hour? Like, what do you mean by that?
Well,
how do I focus and get results in that hour?
Yeah. So the first thing is you have to do one thing at a time. And there's so many times that people don't understand when they're not doing one thing at a time, that they have all these alerts that they're stimulated. And there's this whole bunch of stuff, how the brain works, that it will always favor new information. So you got split attention and attention residue. So really what you have to do is just shut down and focus. And what I do is just set my phone for 1 hour. And then I really just go all in. And my clients will tell me, wow, I've never done it that way. And they will admit that the calmness, they'll say, if I get stuck on the task, like, I have to do some creative work, they'll realize, I normally now go to my emails as a stimuli or pull away as a distraction. So it's really being purposeful for that hour, because when you're purposeful, then you can see your results, you can measure your results, and then you know what your next step is. I remember I was standing in an airport one day and I was standing beside somebody and they were asking somebody else on the line. They said, do you know how long it takes the flight from, it was Toronto, I think, to Chicago or something like that. And the people were saying, you know what, we've been there a bunch of times, but we've always had indirect flights. We had layovers. We had this, there was a snowstorm. We don't know. So the point is they went from A to B a whole bunch of times, but because it wasn't direct, like a to-do list, they just had no idea how long the flight was. And we do that all day long in our workday.
Absolutely. So when you're planning your steps, right, and in the moment, and you're planning what's next, do you plan all the steps ahead of time so that you know for, let's say, this particular task is do you break it down before you put it into its, organization, or do you break it down piece by piece, or how do you do that?
Yeah, that all sounds a little complicated. And what I would say to you is in the beginning, it seems like a lot and it's overwhelming just taking it. But what I would say is take one project, one step at a time. So what I also talk about in the book is working backwards. Mm-hmm. And we do this in our personal life, but we don't tend to do this with work. So let's say, for example, something silly, like you had a dentist appointment Thursday morning. First of all, it would be on the calendar because it's an external appointment and you respect somebody else's time, even if you don't respect your own work. And then you would say, okay, I have to be there at 11. It's an hour away. Okay, I have to have breakfast. I have to do this, blah, 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 whatever. So by the time you look at that appointment, you might say, I have to get up at 8 and leave the house at 9:30 because you've done the math. You've worked backwards.
Right.
And we tend to, when we get new clients or new projects, you just dive all in and go really fast and you're excited. And then it peters out, but you have no map. So if you say, like, for example, with my book, I wanted my book to be out in June. And I said, all right, what does that look like? So then I figured out, doing the math, that I had to do 5 pages a day. Mm-hmm. Now, there were some days that I didn't feel like I had 5 pages in me. And if I hadn't broken it down, I would say, you know what? I'm not feeling it today. Tomorrow, I'm going to be more rested. I'm just going to do better. But what would happen is because I broke it down, I would look and go, you know what? If I don't have 5 pages in me today, I'm not going to have 10 in me tomorrow. So I had to push through because I could see really clearly that by Wednesday, I'd have to have 15 pages Wednesday morning. That's not going to happen.
Right.
So working
But it gives you choices too, right? It does give you a sense of flexibility.
But
you do know, but you have to be prepared and plan for it. If you're going to push something that was supposed to be for today into tomorrow, you have to organize and plan yourself.
Right. But in my case, I knew the goal wasn't realistic. Right. But absolutely, if something comes up and you want to move it on your calendar, go for it. So it's really what I would say to you is, how do I get stuff done? I would say the number one thing is work backwards and say, when do you want this out? What's involved? And then that's going to bring clarity to you. So it's not this big heavy thing where people think I sit down Sunday night and I map out my week for an hour. It doesn't go like that. Once you get in the groove, you also get into batch work. So I tend to have all my client calls on one day. And then people will say, well, my business is different or my clients are all in different directions. But you'd be surprised how you have 2 appointments on a Thursday and the next person that calls and you just say to them, well, can you make Thursday 11? Yes, I can. So then you start massaging your calendar so that you're going in one direction instead of a whole bunch of different ones.
And here's what I like about what you just said is you just simply ask the question. You're not being inflexible, right? Or unreasonable with clients to say you have to be on Thursdays and that's it. Because some people are like, oh, I can't do that. Well, you're just asking the question. Why can't you ask the question?
Yeah. And you'd be surprised how many times it falls in your favor.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that asking questions is a powerful time management tool. Like I don't know about you, but I used to get so caught up as an entrepreneur, that curse of urgency, which is like gift and a curse. We want to serve. And so somebody says, I need you to add this to the delivery. Yeah. And you just assume that means like tomorrow or immediately. Yeah. And you go off and you do it and whatever consequence. And I had to learn for the same reason that you did about like being all over the place, crazy, burning yourself out. So I just asked, when do you need this by?
Yeah.
It's amazing how, I'm going on vacation tomorrow. I don't need it until 2 weeks. They're just getting it off their plate. And I think it's so key to ask questions so that you can better plan, better organize. And I would imagine, as you talked about guilt earlier, it'll also reduce that guilt.
Yeah. And then what happens too, because you have your calendar filled out, you can look and go, I have to be realistic with this client and say, look, we're really booked for the week, so we'll be starting this next week. Whereas you tend to, by default, as an entrepreneur, want to over deliver, undersell, and get all excited, say, well, I'll try to get to you tomorrow. And then you get off the phone, you realize, I have all this other stuff happening. So if you really, it's just about having a clear inventory of what your resources are, just like your bank account. You can't go into a store, even a grocery store, with nothing with labels or prices on it, and then also not know how much money is in your bank account. Like, I have no idea how much money I have. I have no idea how much this costs. It'll all work out.
Right.
That's not, that's not going to happen.
It doesn't work so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. Absolutely. Good. So those are some ways to organize time and get more done in that time frame. Is there any other tip that, you really love to share with people because it makes such a big difference?
Yeah, I would tell people, we think it's responsible to dive into the workday and check your emails first. Is there a problem? Any fires I could put out and scan that? And I would tell you that it's like your cell phone with your battery. It depletes your battery. It's like having a whole bunch of apps open on your phone. First of all, it's really damaging to how the brain works and you get fatigued. And on a side note, that's another thing we could have a whole show on. People have this idea that it's about discipline, and that kind of grinding it out really depletes your battery as well. So what you really want to do is you want to do your creative work first. So you would do your creative work first thing in the morning, and then as you move on in the day, answering emails or doing social media requires less focus. You're on autopilot. When you've got less of a mental battery there, you're going to still execute at a really efficient level because you can do that with your eyes closed. So I know for me, I would have to learn something, and we all do with the technology these days. And I would think, okay, I'll get all my work done and then I'll focus on that. But I don't know. That's like, I don't even know what that's like. It's like running 10K and then say, I'll do a workout afterwards. You're not going to get as many push-ups in, right? So that's another big thing is do the stuff. It's not about I don't believe in that philosophy of doing the stuff you don't like first thing in the morning. If you execute all these things I have in the book, these strategies, you won't have things that you hate to do. You just won't. But what I would tell you is start with the stuff that requires the most focus and creativity in the morning.
Well, I think I read a study that it was proven that after we wake up, even if you're not a morning person, They said that it's just proven that you're more creative and it's the best time to get those types of activities done. So
yeah, absolutely.
So earlier, let's talk about focus and distraction for a moment, and then we'll look to wrap it up. So you talked about that, we've got win the hour. So we've got, let's say I'm clear on what it is that I want to do, but squirrel, so many things, right, that are vying for our attention. What are your top tips around helping people to stay focused and block out distractions?
So what I do, this sounds horrifying to people, but I shut everything down. Like, you shouldn't have all these alerts. You should not have all these alerts on your computer. You shouldn't. So when I'm working on it, I have my email open, but I don't have Facebook alerts. I don't have all these technology alerts of any sort. I just set my timer on my phone for 1 hour and that's it. There are very few people that can text me. Like, there's a ranking of 2 people who can text me. And even Slack, they came out with an article lately like, oh, is Slack a good thing? That's problematic. So we've got all these electronic beeps that are really like electronic mosquitoes. Have you ever tried to work while a mosquito's buzzing around your face? So what happens is you've got all these electronic mosquitoes and people think, oh, that's fine. I need to know that. But, you're being stimulated by outside forces. So we all have to sit down, decide we're going to commit for 45 minutes to an hour to work on this task. And to be in your favor, you need to manually say, I am not going to participate in all these shiny objects that have spent great amount of time in marketing to get my attention. They have teams, big, expensive teams that are working on getting our attention.
Absolutely. But you said that discipline drains our battery, right? Yeah. And so that requires discipline, doesn't it?
I don't think it does. I think if you get into a habit of just shutting it down, discipline's not required, because it's not like a message is floating across your screen and you are trying to have discipline not to look at it.
Absolutely. I'm just making the point. Like, I'm playing.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Because I love being challenged.
A lot of people have this. I know you've probably had this too when you're coaching people. When I go in and speak, I hear people all the time. They don't want to hear go into airplane mode and turn off all of those things that could distract you. And because it just creates fuzzy thinking. You can't focus because so many things are vying for your attention and constantly interrupting you. And people don't want to do it. I'm not, but, right? There's the buts. Yeah, that works for other people, but not for me. I mean, how do you get people out of that way of thinking? I love what you said about the mosquitoes. That's a great analogy of people just imagining that all of those beeps and buzzes or whatever are like annoying, because that's exactly what it is. And I hope that will break through to people and have them stop the insanity, because that's what it is. So what do you say to someone who just says, I can't shut it all down. I'm going to lose a client if I'm not answering that phone, or I'm going to miss an opportunity to write a proposal if I don't check that email. What do you say to them?
Well, I would say a couple things. First of all, I would guarantee you that you're not going to have any success if you don't try it. So, you can buy a gym membership, and if you never go, I assure you, you'll never lose weight or get in shape. So there's that. So that's the number one thing there. And then I would say to you that we're probably so overstimulated, we don't even realize it, right? So I know I did a podcast just like this, and I would hear a beeping because we're doing video. You see my face, and I would see the podcaster look down, and I could see that he had alerts, emails going across his page. Now, here was the problem. I couldn't stop and call him out, but yet he would come back not even realizing it happened, and he missed something I said, and you could see him stammering, and I couldn't rescue him. So he didn't even realize that was happening. But I would say I'm not here to convince anybody that they have to give up things that are important to them. What I'm telling you is science has proven this is not in your favor. And I know for myself, for a couple of years, I thought, but you don't understand. I'm different because I'm so passionate about my business. I'm so hungry that somehow my brain is different than all the brains that the scientists did the study on distractions. And it sounded fine until I said it out loud. So what I would say to people is, when you want to execute at a really high level and get your workload out and make a bigger impact on your audience instead of juggling your projects, when you really want to get to execution, then we can talk. Until then, Honestly, I don't try to convince those type of people. I'm just here to get people that are successful, that want to be more successful and don't want to put in crazy hours. Like I have an agency, a marketing agency, then I wrote a book. Now we're creating a platform and we have other ambitions in the next year. But none of this is including me increasing my work hours. We get up every day and we say, okay, how can we take 5 steps, turn them into 3? How can we get more and more efficient? Because I am only going to be working 7 hours. And yet every time you climb a mountain, you see the next mountain. So that's what I'm about.
Awesome. I love that. I think that those are really important points. And, maybe for those listeners, like you said, it's not about convincing them, but if anybody's listening and you still have all the beeps and bells and buzzles and whatever going off, and I always just encourage people to think about what it's costing them. Like you said, we're not aware, we're not connected. As a matter of fact, because we're so distracted, we're even more disconnected from our goals, disconnected from what's important to us, and just like, operating at a very low level, right? A very unfocused, unpurposeful type of level. And so the cost, just really getting clear of what it's costing you, right? If this continues, where could your business be? And maybe it's not like it's painful in the sense of you're going to get a heart attack because you're working too many hours, or your kids are going to turn out to be drug addicts because you're never home. Those could be really bad things. But when I always tell people to go to the worst possible case so that they can inflict a little bit of pain, even though it's not there, it's better to feel it before it happens than actually have to live with it, right? And so sometimes it's just the opportunity cost.
Here's something I thought of. Recently, I sort of really got into biking and bicycling. And I was going up a hill. And I realized, depending on what gear I was in, depended on how much effort I had to use to put up that hill. So I'm sure your listeners get stuff done. They're getting the projects out. They're getting stuff done. But what happens is when I got to that top of that hill, depending on what gear I was in, determined how much energy I had to get up the next hill. So do I think your listeners are probably really smart people? They probably are. They listen to you. So what's happening is, you're going to get stuff done. But what if you can get up and down 10 hills instead of 6? And you could do it and feel, what I think is you should leave work feeling fresh and start work feeling refreshed. So it's the cost and the toll on you to impact your audience. That's what I want people to think about.
Absolutely. Love it. So where can people reach you and get your book and find out more about working with you?
Yeah, they can grab it on Amazon at any time, Kindle or the paperback. They can check us out at Win the Hour, Win the Day. And I would say also reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram and tell me that you heard me here and let's chat. Tell me what you're working on.
Awesome. Thank you, Kris, so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
And thank you all for listening, because today you got some really great tips, and especially the analogy that helped you to kind of break out of that old way of thinking, because that's what it's all about. Is wherever you are, you got to where you are with the skills and the experience that you have, but we hit a plateau. And in order to get to the next level, you have to think differently. You have to look at things differently. And a lot of things that Kris talked about today can help you to do that. Just start with baby steps. Just take a look at what you're doing and see how you could be 2 times more efficient. You don't have to go to 10 times. But however, if you're an overachiever, go to 10 times. Take those 5 steps and make them into 3. Thank you all for listening. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening. Today's topic is another opportunity for you to put the knowledge you learned into practice. Tune in again next week for more strategies that will help you have more energy and focus to get more done in less time, so you can continue to take back time.